Today you join us in the village of Kinloss in Moray, and we are going to learn the history of Kinloss Abbey and some of the more colourful characters who stayed there. The Abbey was founded in 1150 by David I. The story goes he was out hunting and he got separated from the rest of the group. He prayed for assistance. A dove came and assisted him to 𝔬𝔠𝔬𝔱𝔩𝔞𝔫, where some shepherds look after him for the night. And in a dream that night he was told to build an abbey, or a centre of worship, to thank the fact that he had been saved. Legend says that he planned out the abbey, drew it out in the 𝔬𝔠𝔬𝔱 with his sword, and then returned to Duffus Castle, where he summoned the stonemasons and also some monks to look after the building of the church and then to live in the church once it would be completed. What is unusual with an abbey built in 1160 is that this kirkyard is still in use today. The monks he chose were from Melrose Abbey, and the abbey here received its papal bull in 1174, so it meant that it was in use for worship and that, but it wasn't completely finished until the 1210s. And when you see the remains, you can see why it's really been quite a job. I'm really quite impressed. It truly is stunning. The ceiling to die for. I'll spare you all the excited oohing and eyeing, but when I just pop the camera through the grill so you can get a good view of that gorgeous altar. And another stunning ceiling. In 1217, the monks here formed the sister abbey of Kinloss in the Kingdom of Fife. 2 years later, they formed Deer Abbey further up in Aberdeenshire. I think it's towards Peterhead. More abbeys for different days, but the amount of stunning architecture in this one really sets it apart. Just come across some pretty spectacular stone coffins. Just wow. Another unusual thing in Kinloss is the absolute plethora of unfortunate headstones that are Commonwealth graves. Due to the proximity of places like Lossiemouth, a lot of the air gunners and pilots from the Royal Air Force are interred here. It's quite a sombre sight. I think what is quite sobering is that most of these guys we lost, and they hadn't achieved their 30th birthday. So much life to give and taken in their prime. Successive generations of Scottish royalty heavily supported Kinloss Abbey, and it rapidly became one of the wealthiest in Scotland. So much so that in 1312 Robert the Bruce granted the monks fishing rights for the River Findhorn. This is Gordon territory, and with the EM, I think it is Elizabeth Gordon. Some of these mausoleums are really a substantial size. Davidson is also quite a popular name here as well. I am going to see if I can find out anything on this guy. Not sure if you can see it. It's Peter Davidson. He died in Calcutta, and I wonder, was it maybe in the Indian Wars? I see the familiar eyes of a skull. There are crossbones. It's quite hard to make any of the rest out. There are quite a lot of what look like much older slabs here. Since we're talking of the Abbey, we should tell you something about the Cistercian monks who came to live in the Abbey. The Cistercian monks were formed in 1098 in Dijon, in France. They were known as the White Monks because they often wore white or grey robes with a black scapular. It's important to realise that when we are walking around abbeys, especially with vast lands and churches and centres of learning, that often this was the monk's life, their whole life. Once they would come to somewhere like this, they would come here, work out their life, and that would be them. They would be buried here as well. With the wealth of lands that an abbey would hold, there would be a wealth of feudal revenue. and the monks rejected that. They favoured labour and working to be self-sufficient. There were yearly meetings to ensure that the monks would be maintaining all their standards, usually, but like anything, there are those who escape the net. The 14th and 15th centuries were a time of scandal. The abbot and his monks were pretty much convincing people that they might have been immoral. The powers that be weren't that impressed, and a posse from Rome was sent to kick them into touch. A worse scandal was to hit in 1492. William Butler, one of the monks, in a fit of rage, struck one of the young boys in the cloister and killed him. Eventually, the Abbey here would receive letters of absolution from the Pope in Rome. However, the monk and his escort never made it to Rome. In fact, they were never seen again. Nothing strange as folk. Kinloss supported 24 abbots in all. The most notable was Robert Reid, appointed in 1528. He established a centre of academic excellence in Kinloss. He also served as a diplomat for James V and was even discussing peace terms with Henry VIII. In 1541, Reid was made Bishop of Orkney and 2 years later head of the judiciary in Scotland based in Edinburgh. He really must have spent quite a considerable time travelling to attain all these positions. He died in 1558 and left significant funds that would assist in the founding of the University of Edinburgh in 1582. Only the 6th uni founded in the British Isles and the 4th in Scotland. Clearly Scotland well ahead of the game in education there. Although it has possibly seen better days and it's not currently accessible, those are the remains of the old abbot's house. Maybe they'll get it consolidated at some stage and we can come back. The Reformation didn't hit Kinloss immediately. In fact, Mary Queen of Scots stayed here in 1562. Thankfully it's one of the places she doesn't haunt. In time, however, the property was worn down, and in 1601, Bruce of Kinloss was granted the remains. In 1643, the property and land was sold to Brodie of Leithen. And why are there so many little remains of this stunning abbey? Because Brodie of Leithen sold all the bricks and rocks that went to building the abbey so that Mr. Cromwell could build his citadel in Aberdeen. Can't say Brodie of Leithen's going to be one of my favourite historical figures. You can really appreciate the vastness of Kinloss when you realise, interspersed with all the headstones and grave slabs, there are bits of Abbey. It's been quite a concern in its day. So that was the stunning ruins of Kinloss Abbey. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe and leave a comment. It really helps the channel grow. If you like, you can join me on Facebook and Instagram of the same name, Exploring Scotland's History. And can I take a chance to thank everyone who has supported the channel thus far on the Ko-fi page. I'll put a wee link below to that too. Until next time, thanks for watching.